Hey, did somebody ask for the most delicious carrot cake ever created in the history of the world? Subjective, but it's my opinion. It's moist, fluffy, perfectly spiced, and covered in the best cream cheese frosting ever. I haven't even mentioned the buttercream carrots on top. Today, it's this amazing carrot cake. So let's get started. Before I do anything for the batter, I'm preparing my pans. I already buttered my 3/8-inch pans and I'm doing an optional step, which is a parchment paper round. You don't have to do this, but it's like an insurance policy. So if you dump your cake out and something stuck or is underbaked a little bit or whatever else arching around, all was released nicely and it's just as nice stuff to do. The last step is take a tablespoon of flour and just kick it around the side because I buttered to the sides that's exposed and you don't want that to be. Let's shred some carrots. You could use your food processor for this or just do it by hand. And we want 1 pound. I'm using the fine grater, but the thick one works as well. Be careful. This is the thing that's injured the most people in the kitchen. Your poor knuckles. You don't have to do this, but I have a scale here so I could just measure it out as I go along halfway there. Exactly 1 pound? Okay, this can get set aside, some scraps to nosh on later. Now for the dry ingredients. So into the large bowl, over a scale and under a sifter, we're going to add 300 grams or 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. There we go. 2 teaspoons of baking soda, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1.5 teaspoons of salt, a generous half teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/4 teaspoon of ginger, half a teaspoon of cardamom, oh so good, and half a teaspoon of allspice. Allspice really should go in all of your baking. All right, let's sift it out. Whisk it up. You want to distribute those spices and the leavening agents, the salt, everything. Don't distribute it onto the counter though. For the wet ingredients, we're using 3/4 of a cup of sour cream. And yes, if you don't have sour cream, yogurt will do. Plain full fat preferably. So now 3/4 of a cup or 180 ml of vegetable oil. Half a cup of applesauce. Using the applesauce and sour cream helps you use less oil. So you have a delicious moist cake that's not going to be oily. Oily cake is one of my pet peeves. It's like, ugh. 1 2/3 cup of sugar might seem like a lot, but remember, this is a big cake. This is enough cake to feed like a large group of people that in about 2 teaspoons of vanilla and 3 whole eggs. Room temperature, please. All right, now we're ready to whisk this up. This is a small bowl for a lot of ingredients. What am I doing? This could be done in a stand mixer or with an electric mixer as well. We're basically ready to assemble. And there's one more step before I assemble the batter. I'm adding 1 cup of toasted chopped pecans into a little bowl and just tossing them with some flour. That's 121 grams in case you're not using cups. All right, just toss it up. This will help the nuts kind of like be where they need to be and not just sink to the bottom. So now let's assemble this batter. I'm so excited to pour the wet into the dry. Now let's mix this up. We're mixing the batter until almost combined, which means it's okay to have a couple of pockets of flour hanging out here or there because that's all going to get handled. Once we fold in the rest of the ingredients, now we can dump in those nuts and all the delicious carrot. What's a carrot cake without carrot? Most of you know this already, but all of that carrot will just infuse in the cake with so much moisture. Scrape the bottom of the bowl. Divide the batter equally into those 3 pans. Love that color. Okay, so if you want about 640 grams of batter in each of your pans, I zeroed out the scale first. So it's totally fine, but if you have a doomed cake, you'll either have to trim or just deal with a cake that's really domed. Cake strips are on. Let's bake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 177 degrees Celsius at 40 to 45 minutes. I don't know how it goes in other countries or like there's gas marks, etc. Let me know about that. I'm curious. While my cake layers are cooling, it's time for some cream cheese frosting. This is going to be a combo with 3 sticks of room temperature butter, 339 grams, that is 113 grams times 3 or 1.5 cups. Afterwards, we're going to add in 16 ounces or 452 grams. That's 2 blocks of room temperature cream cheese. Okay, we're going to cream this with a paddle attachment and just, make it nice and homogeneous. This one time where you want things on the colder side of room temperature. Because while amazing, delicious, creamy, tangy, and sweet cream cheese frosting has this annoying tendency to really fall apart when it warms up. So if you get it to be on the cooler side of room temperature and make your cake layers are nice and totally cool, you're going to have much easier time decorating your cake. That's good. Now it's time for the sugar. Okay, so we're going to add in a lot of sugar. It's going to be about 1 3/4 pounds of confectioner sugar. If you're like, oh my gosh, that's too much, you can add in less. It'll be totally delicious. Still, it'll be a little bit more oozy and droopy, so don't just go crazy trying to decorate the cake perfectly. The more sugar you add in, the stiffer it'll be, and the more like regular buttercream. I'm so used to decorating cakes with meringue-based buttercreams like Swiss and Italian meringue buttercream. Add a splash or a teaspoon of 2 vanillas. Now let's give it a mix. Okay, let's give us a little taste. For those carrots, we're adding in 1/2 cup or 113 grams of butter. Now we're just gonna give it a mush. I got really into those buttercream flour tutorials that were from like various like cream cake artists. And one of the things they would do is to make their buttercream by hand, even for meringue based ones. And it wouldn't have any like air bubbles in it, and it would be perfect for piping. So we're doing something kind of similar here for those carrots. If you want, you can totally make it with a paddle attachment and your stand mixer too, but it's not a big deal. So I'm just not dumping the sugar. I'm using about 2 cups of sugar now, and I might add a little bit more if needed. What I'm doing is making like a paste. So I'm mixing it in. Mix, 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 mix. Just add a drop of vanilla in to kind of lubricate things a bit. A little bit of patience is well rewarded in this pipeable paste. You want it to be really stiff, so one of the keys for piping anything with American buttercream, which this is to have it to be stiff. You want to have a nice definition. If it's flowers, you don't want them to be droopy. And if it's a carrot, you want it to stand up with those little leaves coming straight up, not at all falling down, especially if the weather could be a little bit warmer. So now I have my paste. I'm going to separate this into 2 batches. A smaller one will be dyed green and the larger one will be dyed orange. So a couple of drops of orange, carrots can be like white, but no one's trying to hear that. Orange carrots were developed to celebrate the House of Orange, as in William of Orange, as in William and Mary, King and Queen of England. That looks sufficiently orange, and if you have any doubts, you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know, this could be more saturated, just know that all buttercreams, American buttercreams, will darken up as they dry a bit, so that looks plenty orange to me. I think I used a lot of this green in another cake. There we go, nice and green. Okay, let's assemble this cake. Nice and cool. Look at those flat layers. And if you're wondering, yes, it was amazing getting them out of the pans. They plopped right out. That's all I needed. That perfectly flat. Fluffy and delicious. Straighten it out, so just make sure you're on a good foundation. Okay, next layer. There you go. That is a big, beautiful cake over here. This cake is in a break your heart. You'll never have another carrot cake again. I'm going to get some buttercream coverage on this cake, and then as needed, I can add more on after an initial smooth. Don't be too precious with this cake. It's just a delicious cake with really cute buttercream carrots on top. Finish that up now. Let's give it a smooth. Smooth the side out. Cake decorating is so much easier at the turntable, I cannot even tell you. Go and buy one. Pull in the edge. We're almost done with the smoothing part. Now I'm adding a squirt of toasted chopped pecans onto the bottom part. If it falls down, pick it right back up, just like a friend. I love that this adds contrast to the cake and also gives you extra crunch. I'm all about that crunch, that any excess you can just take right off. Okay, any other pieces you could just pop in the top and a bit of gradient. And now it's time for our carrots. The orange buttercream is in the bag, fitted with an 1/8 tip. It's like a medium round. We're going to pipe some carrots at different heights and distances from the edge. So that's a baby carrot. Look how beautiful that buttercream is. Piping there is like no wavering. It's very strong, beautiful buttercream. If you want, you can pipe your chairs at the same height and at the same distance, but I like them to look kind of messy. So it's like a garden, kind of. I have the green buttercream in a piping bag fitted with a 233 tip. So each carrot is getting about 2 squeezes from my grass tip. And in between, I'm just cleaning off the tips. I don't have any like weird access. Here's where the just in case comes in handy. So if you're like, oh, that's too much, you can just push it back up like that. And it's easier if you squeeze but don't lift up for a minute. Form a base and then lift up. It'll give those little green pieces of foundation to grow on. And there you go, carrot cake. The only thing left is to take a bite. If you like this recipe, check out Ultimate Cake Playlist. It's my all-time favorite cakes, guaranteed to please. You're going to love them, but for now, let's take a bite. So good. You've got to make this recipe. Thanks so much for watching. If you like my videos, hit that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.